didn't do it.
I think you did.
What's the deal following Oregon football from afar, it seems?
Yeah, been in Oregon, you know, my whole life. Last 3 years we've been in Arizona, so
Shop a huge selection
enjoying
of home
it, to say
furnishings
the
at
least.
everyday low prices.
You wanna trade?
We also discover bedrooms and queen beds starting at $195.
Bro.
Shop livingspaces.com or visit us in Mission Valley off the 805 freeway and Rio San Diego Drive.
Best players outstanding at Oregon against
I didn't
each
do
other
it.
in a summer classic. This year's 75th Les Schwab Bowl kicks off
in
Saturday,
Oregon, you know,
July
my whole life.
1st.
Last 3 years we've been in Arizona, so
Shop a
University.
huge selection of
Obviously,
home
this is the
furnishings
first
at
year we
everyday low prices.
broadcast the player draft, but it's a change in a series of different changes for the Les Schwab Bowl, once known as the Shrine Game and kicked off in 1948. A couple of years ago, the Les Schwab Bowl introduced underclassmen into the mix, just furthering the talent pool. Those top sophomores, top juniors, even top freshmen, shout out Timmy Mitchell of Central Catholic High School, got an opportunity to showcase their skills against the best players in the state of Oregon. Last year, the Les Schwab Bowl broke away from the North versus South format and instead switched up to a player draft. Team Columbia versus Team Willamette. This year's new wrinkle, this year's new addition, on top of the draft being broadcast, was an evaluation day. Just about a week ago, they expected roughly 40 players to show up. Over 100 athletes turned out in the hopes of getting drafted and playing in this contest. A great idea by the Les Schwab Bowl because the date coincided with college coaches being able to be at the event and evaluate coaches or evaluate the talent themselves. So not only are these kids trying out for this game, but they're also potentially getting some college exposure in front of college coaches who could potentially build those relationships and eventually give them scholarships. With that in mind, let's meet our coaches for Team Columbia and Team Willamette. Coaching Team Columbia, Central Catholic coach, 4-time state champion, Steve Pyne. Coach Pyne, how you doing?
Doing good, Andrew. Thanks. I'm excited about this opportunity.
Now, before we got started, you were showing everybody the trophy from last year. The draft went well for you last year, and you picked up the trophy. I want to talk to you about your 4 state titles and a couple of those trophies. I recently got into a debate of your most talented Central Catholic team. I happen to be partial to the Ryan Null Cameron Scarlett led squad that put up something like 80 points against Tigard in the semifinals. Which team did you think was the most talented? If they had a Final Four against one another, which team comes out on top?
2013, the one you're talking about, it was just so deep. Not only those 2 guys, but Connor Humphreys and Blake Brandel and TJ Salou and Riley Gallant and Aiden Wilder. I mean, it was just loaded. And those guys just loved each other so much. And that was such a special group for sure. But talent from top to bottom.
Good. I already did.
I can't speak to this. Not very many people can speak to this, but I imagine every championship team has a different feel. At what point do you kind of get the sense in a season, okay, this could be a team that makes a run? Does it actually happen the year before? Does it happen week 2, week 3 when they maybe face some adversity? When do you hit that point where you go, hey, we got something special going here?
I think you hit it on the head there. At some point in time in every season, your group's going to go through some adversity, and how they respond to that, how that brings them together or tears them apart really matters. And I would say in every single one of the groups that we've had that we've been fortunate to win it with, there's been some hallmark adversity that we've had to go through during that season, and
if
really
nobody's
kind
pissed about us,
of bound us together to propel us to the last game.
Really difficult question. Who, in your opinion, raw talent, is the most talented player you've had at Central Catholic?
I'm gonna.
Good one.
There's a lot.
I would say 1A is Ryan Null, and 1B would probably be Riley Williams with a question mark to see where he ends up.
And who's the player that you think maybe went under the radar that was the most maybe underappreciated historically, that just, whether it was recruiting, whether it was just a special player that maybe played an interior O-line position or played somewhere that maybe didn't get the headline, score all the touchdowns, but was a really special piece as a leader in the history of your program?
I'd say first Ryan Nall was vastly under-recruited and undervalued. The other guy, honestly, is Katana
Go try it on a
Dapo.
computer or on a tablet
No
or on your
scholarships
phone.
coming out of
That's
high
something
school,
just to
walked down
see.
at Oregon State. Sounds like he's in line for a great season, senior season down at Oregon State, and probably will be drafted. And I couldn't get anybody to go on the kid.
Perfect. Coach Pyne, thank you for your time. Coaching team Willamette, Sheldon coach Josh Line. Coach, hoping to steal that trophy here from Pyne this year, I imagine.
Yeah, I actually was able to work with Steve last year. I had a blast.
Screenshot of the level
getting to know him and the other coaches on the staff, and it was a wonderful experience. But yeah, I'd like to win the game. If we can make that happen, that would be more fun. But it's just fun getting together with everybody and seeing everybody.
Glad Nemec's not
we don't get to interact with one another as much as maybe we would like to, but I had a great time last year working with Steve and the other coaches.
That's one of the things that people I don't think understand about the Les Schwab Bowl from the outside. It's not just one game. It's not just one event. It's a week-long experience.
That's just like a full
players,
screenshot of my
You'll have players say
my
they
phone
made
screen, not
lifelong
zoomed in,
friendships from this.
yeah,
The coaches all get together and kind of have a fraternity that's sort of built through this. How special is the week of the Les Schwab Bowl? Obviously not just the game itself.
Yeah, I'm just stoked we're doing this.
The experience. And the opportunity to have lunch together, breakfast, dinner, get out to the practice field. The thing that's cool about football in general is that we all share the same, struggles. And we also, go in, we're also all built the same. I mean, our minds and our brains are wired the same. And so it's real easy for us to connect and have a great time together in those types of environments. And anybody that's either played football or coached, that's the best part. The time that you get to spend with your teammates and your fellow coaches, that's what makes the experience. The game's fun and everything.
Seven Seas Cruises
and ultimately, that's the end goal.
An unrivaled experience.
The week of preparation is really what makes it special.
Beyond all
I had a blast last year. I had one of my brains are wired the same. One of the best times I've had, because you're not just working with kids that are from your program, but you're getting a chance to see kids from other programs and other coaches, and it's just a really rewarding, fun experience.
Speaking of rewarding experiences, an incredible year for you guys last year. So much talent on both sides of the ball, truly a special group. When did you feel like that team could potentially make a run to a championship game, just a deep tournament run?
Well, the previous year after we got kind of beat up by Lake Ridge, I think 2 weeks after that game, I had Brock Thomas and the fellas calling me saying, "Coach, we got to get back in the weight room. We want to get back to work."
Allow Betty or Pat to get hurt.
After the season's over,
I didn't do
these
it.
guys didn't want and that is the reason why. That's when I started to believe as a coach and my staff as well. Kids from other programs started to believe that we had something special, and obviously it's just really rewarding. As we progress through the off season, we gain more and more confidence as a group. A lot of people don't realize this, but coming out of COVID was, to me, when I think about this last year's senior group, their ability to reestablish our culture after we kind of lost it during COVID. Our football culture was really challenged coming out of COVID, and this group of kids really did a good job of reestablishing that. And so, yeah, we have talent. We had a talented team this year, but I would say that just the group itself is what translated into the success we had.
Now, I'm not sure a lot of people remember this, but you're one of the most efficient receivers in the history of Oregon football. In 2001, big-time game against UCLA, Oregon looking to have a historic season. You guys go on the road. It ended in an undefeated road season for the Oregon Ducks, but 4th and goal, down 20-14 to UCLA. Joey Harrington fakes a handoff to Ontario Smith, I believe, and finds you in the end zone for the game winner. You got the game ball for that, but not just for that catch. Also, you had a tremendous game as primarily a blocking fullback, and that's why I make the joke, one of the most efficient receivers. You didn't get it often, but when you did, you were wide open. Surprised by that play call, and what did that season mean to you as a player in Eugene?
Well, it was a dream come true. I mean, I grew up in the shadow of Autzen Stadium, and getting a chance to play for the Ducks myself was, way beyond my wildest imagination. Obviously, everybody grows up wanting to play for the Ducks, but then to even get to play and have the success we had on top of all of that was great. Now, listen, I was always open.
You were.
If you fake it to Ontario, there isn't anybody in the stadium that thinks that I'm getting the ball. So that's how I got so open most of the time, is I had great teammates around, and playing with a caliber of athlete like Ontario and Maurice and Joey Harrington and Justin Field. It was really special. But what I will say about that team is that we were a great team. And that's when I learned a lot about how impactful a group of guys that are committed to one another. It's amazing how much success they can have. And like Steve brought up earlier, how you weather the storms together is really what tells the story. And that every team that has success goes through some sort of adversity. And, I'm just grateful that I was able to be a part of that. And it's helped me to be the coach that I am today.
Thanks, Coach. Now that we met our coaches, here's Les Schwab Bowl Commissioner and President of Primetime Sports, John McCallum, to break down the draft rules and present the coin flip.
Yeah, appreciate it, Andrew. Thank you. And a lot of thanks goes out to Coach Pyne and Coach Line for leading both teams, taking on this endeavor, because it does take time. We talk about it quite a bit, in addition to the other 6 coaches on each staff, we sit down, we have a lot of meetings, we prepare, we listen, and we just do what they ask us to do to make this the best week, as you had talked about, for all the players involved. And it doesn't go without saying that, we're a Northwest-based event that's been going on for over 70 years, and we couldn't do it without, Les Schwab Tires, Express Employment Professionals, and Nike, all Northwest-based companies that have put a lot of their own time and effort into it. So it goes to saying, without them, this game might have folded. So again, it takes a community, and obviously the great state of Oregon, is behind it. So we thank everybody for being a part of it. I'm going to start, actually. Coach Pyne, you are the visiting team this year. So I'm going to do a coin flip to see who's going to draft first, and then I'll go over the rules because it'll make a difference with who's drafting at what time. So heads or tails?
Tails.
Here it is. Tails it is. You were drafting first.
All right.
I didn't mess around with the coach line, I promise you. So the draft process, obviously people are used to the NFL draft. The difference with our game, both teams have to make an entire team versus just taking, the top 7 picks that they, have been scouting. So we've working together as staffs have changed the process a little bit than what people are used to. So I'll just quickly go over it so there's some understanding. With Team Columbia going first, they get the first pick. The next 2 picks are going to be done by Team Willamette, and then it follows up with 1 pick after that by Team Columbia. Then we go into the second round. It's going to be 2 to Team Willamette, 3 to Team Columbia, and then 1 to Team Willamette again. And that will be the top 10 picks that I will announce, and we'll go one by one with those. So all the players, anybody's watching this broadcast can follow along with it. And it could be from any player, any position, any school. It doesn't matter. When we go into the third round, we're going to pick offensive skill players, and it's going to go 3 Columbia, 4 Willamette, 1 Columbia. And that's followed by 4th round defensive linemen, 3 Willamette, 5 Columbia, 2 to Team Willamette. And then we're going 5th round linebackers and DBs, 4 to Columbia, 6 to Willamette, and then 2 to Columbia. Follow that, offensive linemen, 6th round, 5 Willamette, 7 to Columbia, and then 2 to Willamette. Then we go 7th round would be the kickers, and then the remainder of any offensive position, line, skill, doesn't matter. And that's 6 Columbia, 8 Willamette, to Columbia. Then we're going 8th round, and that's the remainder of any defensive positions and any other positions that the teams want to do. And it's 2 Willamette, 3 Columbia, 2 Willamette, 2 Columbia, 1 Willamette. And the final 9th round will be the first 10 alternates, any positions, in case a player that's drafted gets hurt, something comes up where they can't play. We will have 5 alternates for each team with that. Like I said, I will announce the first 10 picks that 2 of our staff members are on with each Team Columbia and Team Willamette staff. The head coach, starting the 3rd round, will announce the picks for the other team to hear live right here on SBLive. You cannot change the pick after it's announced. And then if you have a group of picks, you have to announce them all at once. We're going to have 3 minutes between each set of picks. And then after the 4th round, we'll do a 15-minute or so break so all the coaches can figure out who got picked and how it changed their roster from it. So that's the gist of the rules. Andrew, you have anything more to add? Because we can get started whenever.
No, let's fire it up.
All right. So with Team Columbia getting the first pick in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals draft, powered by SBLive, Team Columbia selects Crew Newman, Central Catholic quarterback. 3 minutes starts. Coach Lyon, you're on the clock.
Jordan, obviously, Crew Newman, a phenomenal player at a Central Catholic. I wonder how familiar Coach Pyne is with him. It seems like he might know him a little bit, but Crew Newman is the reigning MVP of this event. He helped lead Team Columbia to the championship, or to the victory last year. 2 touchdown passes, a touchdown rushing. And what really impresses me about Crew, and it's kind of funny we're doing this draft style, he's sort of Oregon high school football's version of Bryce Young. Now, I'm not comparing the players in the sense that he's a 5-star recruit. Bryce Young, obviously #1 recruit in America, but you hear the same things about Crew Newman as you hear about Bryce Young. Always makes the right decision, manipulates the pocket, is able to read a defense both pre-snap and then also kind of understand how things are breaking down in a play and able to make the right play. The knock on him, again, similar to Bryce Young, is he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he just checks every box from a player standpoint. The other thing I think is really impressive, there are a lot of guys who make the big-time play, but sometimes they're always looking for the big-time play. The thing about Crew Newman is he makes the right play. Whether it's an easy read for just a slant or a quick out, that's going to be on time. That's going to be delivered there. When things break down, he can break 2-3 tackles in the pocket, roll out, find space, and either hit a guy downfield or run for a first down. He just always does the right thing. He's a coach's dream, and that's probably why he's the #1 pick at this year's Les Schwab Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, 2-time Mount Hood Player of the Year. Statistically, as of right now, one of the best ever to play in Oregon. 60-plus touchdowns, 3 picks over the last 2 years, 70% completion percentage. He's averaging close to 10 yards a carry. If you break down the numbers, there are few that are better ever. So Crew, separate from the state titles, they'll be in the mix again this year. You're right. 6 foot is what they list him at, but so he's not the biggest guy, but on every other front, one of the most dominant QBs ever to play in Oregon.
No doubt. And he's looking to obviously add a 2nd consecutive Les Schwab Bowl championship and potential MVP trophy onto his resume.
Great. Well, Coach Lyon has his pick in for the 2nd pick in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals draft. Team Willamette selects Brock Thomas, Sheldon, quarterback. And moving on with that, we'll go to #3 since they're paired together. Team Willamette at #3 selects AJ Pugliano, North Medford, tight end. Coach Pyne, you're on the clock with the 4th pick.
Team Willamette getting a couple of great players. I really thought during the regular season that Brock Thomas was the MVP in the state of Oregon last year. I think you could have made a strong argument that at any class, at any level, all the way up, 1A through 6A, Brock Thomas was the most impressive player. He does it with his legs. He does it with his arm. You heard Josh Line, Coach Line, talking in the preview of this, talking about how Brock Thomas, after last season, sat down with his coach and said, we're not satisfied. We're ready to roll. That shows his leadership characteristics. Just a dynamic dual threat player. Was definitely in the mix for Gatorade Player of the Year late into the season. Then you look at his next pick, AJ Pugliano out of North Medford. Pugliano committed to the University of Oregon, a 4-star tight end. And you look for those guys when they're that high a caliber of an athlete, they're a blue chip talent, you look for them to dominate. AJ is certainly a dominator at that tight end position, Jordan.
Yeah, Brock, similar to Crew, his numbers were ridiculous. As a junior, 42 touchdowns, 22 passing, 20 rushing. As a senior, like you said, player of the year, candidate, probably could have been state player of the year with as good a season as Sheldon had. So can't say enough good things about Brock. He was one of the fastest kids in the state at 100 meters. So that kid, yeah, he's a special athlete. AJ, obviously number one in the state by some services as it relates to recruiting. First team all-league kid on both sides of the football. He's going to Oregon. It kind of speaks for itself. So we'll see what he does there, but you can't lose with either one of those kids.
Great. Well, Team Columbia has their pick in at number 4. The 4th pick in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals Draft is Zach Staskowski, Central Catholic lineman. Now, Coach Line, Team Willamette, you're on the clock for the 5th and 6th pick.
You want to protect your quarterback, and Crew Newman certainly is going to have protection with one of the state's best linemen, also a player he's very familiar with, Jordan. Steve Pyne staying with those Central Catholic kids and obviously got a pair of great ones on that offensive side of the ball for himself.
Yeah, Zach is a kid that not a lot of people know about yet. He got offered recently by Northern Arizona. He's one of the only kids in that class with an offer right now. He's a youngster. So he's a kid we're going to hear a lot about in the years ahead. 6'5", 250 right now. Just a really good overall athlete. And like Coach Pyne was talking about earlier, Central has been a factory for linemen over the years. Numerous NFL guys, a lot of high Pac-12 type guys. The Alex Balducci. This could be another one. A lot of people don't know about him. He's class of 2025. So keep that name, in the forefront because you're going to hear a ton about this kid. This is going to be another one of Coach Pyne's best linemen ever to come through.
Great. All right. Looks like Team Willamette has their next 2 picks in, Coach Line. With the 5th pick in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals Draft is Hadamu Latisi, D lineman, South Salem. And the 6th pick in the draft goes to Coach Line, and they take Silas Wallace, offensive lineman, Jesuit. Coach Pyne, you're on the clock.
Team Willamette beefing up the line. Silas Wallace, a big-time leader of a Jesuit offensive line that was one of the best we've seen in recent years. You went through that whole starting 5 for Jesuit, and it seemed like every single one of those guys was an all-conference, all-state caliber player. Also picking up a real talented player from Salem. It looks like early on, Coach Line, a fullback, wanting to bolster things in the trenches there.
Yeah, Hatimu, not the biggest kid. He's 6 foot, 255, plays out of position, but pure talent-wise, easily one of the best defensive players in the state of Oregon. State leader in sacks, tackles. He was up there statistically among the best last year. And then with Silas, 6'2", 300 pounds, that Jesuit line last year, as most people would consider them the best O-line in the state last year. They graduated a ton of kids, so they got a lot to make up. Silas was kind of that key kid on the interior right there. Neither one of those guys are going to be, high profile recruits because of size, but pure talent. Two of the best linemen in Oregon.
Great. Well, we have 2 of the 3 picks in. Actually, here comes the third. So Team Columbia now has the next 3 picks. So in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals draft, at the 7th pick, Lonnie Burt, Jesuit. At the 8th pick for Team Columbia, Timmy Mitchell, Central Catholic. And at the 9th pick and the last pick for Team Columbia in the top 10 is David Fuyava, lineman, North Medford. And now, Coach Line, you are on the clock for the 10th and final pick of the first 2 rounds.
Team Columbia getting a player who really immediately showcased the value of underclassmen in the Les Schwab Bowl. Timmy Mitchell, between his freshman and sophomore year, participates in the Les Schwab Bowl, has a 99-yard defensive touchdown on a scoop and score. Lonnie Burt is one of my just absolute favorite players in the state of Oregon. Just plays football the right way for Jesuit, a truly special talent. A couple of playmakers, some line help for Team Columbia and Coach Pyne, an exciting duo to start things off, and then a trench warrior there to bolster things up front, Jordan.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Lonnie Burt Jr., look for him to be the state's leading rusher next year. They're going to give him the rock 25, 30 times a game. Peyton Roth graduates, so that's a big deal. Lonnie had 7 touchdowns as a junior in limited carries. He was a first-team linebacker. Remember that name. Lonnie's up a division kid. Not a lot of people know about him because he had to wait his turn. But definitely one of the highest top-ranked recruits in the state. For 24, Timmy Mitchell, everyone knows Timmy, what he did as a freshman. It was unheard of at the time. So, he's kind of a household name. He was injured last year for Coach Pyne. He was, he had a great season, but he will be a factor. And then David Fuyaba, I like the pick, Coach, because he's now at Idaho. He's really committed to Western Oregon, made the move. He's going to play for the Vandals in the Big Sky, but he was one of the more dominant kids down north, at North Medford down south for about 3 years. First team all-league kid for 3 years. So that's a good pick.
Great. Well, it looks like Coach Line has his 10th pick in, the last pick of the first 2 rounds. And with the 10th pick in the 2023 Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals draft is Edward Freoff, Crook County.
We see this every year. A smaller school, maybe unknown commodity on the state scale, comes into one of these games and just plays lights out and just shows that they belong at the highest of levels. Coach Line obviously doing his research here and picking up a big-time name out of Crook County. Hey, they're known for their wrestling, state champs seemingly every year, it feels like, but they play pretty good football over there too.
So I'm impressed with the pick because not a lot of people know about who's playing ball at Crook County, as you know, Andrew. Eddie Froof, 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver, an all-state DB. He's got 3 years left to play, so he's extremely young. But for that to have that size, at 6'4", 200, projected receiver, be an all-state DB. That's the kid we're going to hear a lot about in the years to come. He's extremely young, and once again, I really like kind of going out on a limb because not very few people I bet know who Eddie is.
Yeah, this is a chance for him to really be put on the map, and Coach Line selecting him here really highlights just how special he could be.
Yes, that's great. So now we have finished the first 2 rounds. We have our top 10 set. We're now going to go into the 3rd round with the offensive skill players. We're going to take a 2-minute or whenever you're ready, Coach Pyne. You start with 3 picks, followed by 4 to Coach Line, and then 1 back to Team Columbia. And you guys can start it off as you guys will now announce the picks.
All right. Our first pick of the 3rd round will be Jason Covert from Sherwood, quarterback. Then our next pick will be, I got to find his name here real quick, sorry. Jamal Wilson, running back from McKay High School. And then our final pick will be Ziel Smith, wide receiver, Central Catholic.
Coach Pyne, there were definitely years in the history of Sherwood football where the 3 or 4 running backs were known before any quarterback was. Things have changed at Sherwood, and Cason's a pretty special player.
He is. Had a good opportunity last weekend in the evaluation to watch him work. He moves a little bit like Crew does, some similar size and shiftiness and that kind of thing. And on his film, he's a competitor. He throws a pretty good deep ball. So we're excited to have him as a part of Team Columbia for sure.
I can always kind of tell how confident you are in your Central Catholic teams anytime there's an all-star event. However many Central Catholic kids come off the board, could be a pretty good year for you guys next fall, it looks like.
Well, let's hope so. A lot of work to be done before then.
Jordan, what do you see in these 3 players? Obviously, another quarterback. I like the dynamic duo that they got. Can run a similar offense. Both guys can run. Both guys can throw it, and some serious weapons now for both Crew and Cason to throw to and hand off to.
Yeah, Cason was the first team all-league kid last year. Like Coach said, very similar in size to Crew. I think like 22 TDs, 4 picks. So extremely efficient. He's in the state, had a really good year as part of Team Lillard on the 7-on-7 circuit. So I do like that pick. Jamal Wilson, one of the state leaders, the running back out of McKay at the 5A level. So that's definitely an interesting pick. We'll see how he does. And then the number 1 ranked recruit in the state for the class of 2025, just offered by Arizona State, Ziel Smith. So you cannot go wrong there. I've loved that kid since day one. He got in the mix as a freshman, and I just think he's a special kid. Coach Pyne on my list has number 1 and number 2 for the class of 2025 overall. As good as Westland is going to be, everybody knows they could win 5 state titles in a row, but I have Coach Pyne kids at 1 and 2 for the class of 2025 with Ziel number 1.
Now, listen, I know Westland's talented, but I don't know if you can say they've got a shot to win 5 in a row in front of the Central Catholic and Sheldon coach, because both of them will have something to say about it. I hear what you're saying. Ziel Smith, big time prospect, and really in Oregon, you have to be on the map early a lot of the time. We do see those late bloomers. Justin Herbert says hi and would like to enter the chat, but you do have to be on the map early and really kind of show how talented you can be early on. We saw that at Central Catholic with Silas Starr in a very, very talented Central Catholic team. He worked in the playoffs as a freshman and played and produced. We're seeing the same thing with Smith, produced early and already putting himself 2025, but clearly one of the best playmakers in the entire state.
Yeah, can't say enough good things about Coach has done in the last decade. And by the way, Coach Dallin Levitt would be that other guy that I would put on that list, just the third in there. Guys that are in the NFL doing well.
All right, Coach Line, you are up with 4 picks.
Okay, we're gonna select Hogan Carmichael from Summit, quarterback. We're gonna take Ty Pugliano, running back from North Medford. We're gonna take Cooper Hidey, wide receiver from Wilsonville. And last, in the 3rd round, we're going to take Zach McEwen, wide receiver from Sheldon.
Team Columbia with 4 selections there. Carmichael, a very interesting quarterback coach line, really talented player and a player who seems to be rising quickly. What have you seen from him that you wanted him in the fold alongside Brock as your dynamic duo at quarterback?
He's got a really strong arm. Watching his film over the course of the last few weeks, just really impressed with his ability to throw the ball downfield and gets the ball out of his hands quickly. He's really tall, but he's mobile. He has the ability to run relatively well for a kid his size. So he'll fit right in with what we'll try to accomplish offensively. And like I said, hopefully he can challenge the defense downfield a little bit. We can get some separation.
The Pugliano family, obviously very talented. Everybody knows about AJ. He has the offer from Oregon. He's committed to Oregon, but Ty is a special playmaker in his own right.
Yeah, really hurt us over the course of his career. He's one of their top guys. He's a little bit in the shadow of his brother, but not in my mind. Watching him over the years compete, he just did a great job running the ball for North Medford behind those big linemen that they've got down there. And so we're glad to have him be on board. Obviously, having the brothers there will be a good experience for them too. That's also a little bit part of it. And then, but Ty's just very deserving and quality athlete and do a great job for us.
Jordan, a quartet of players for Team Columbia. I thought Carl potentially was one of the more underrated players in the entire state of Oregon, just a really special player. But all 4 of those guys can really play, adding to this Team Columbia roster. What stands out to you about this quartet?
Yeah, Hogan, Summit was probably the best 5A team we've had in Oregon in a long time. They would have been ranked one of the top 6A teams if they would have stayed at that level. Hogan was a big reason for that. He's give or take 6'5". So he's got a shot at the next level. I really like that pick too. You can't go wrong with Brock and Hogan. Ty Pugliano, Coach Line said it exactly right. Definitely one of the more underappreciated guys, maybe because of size. The Pugliano kids are as good as you're going to get. Ty is going to play wherever he plays ball at. He's going to do well collegiately. He's one of the best players in Oregon and definitely on the all underrated team if there was one. Cooper Hyde at Wilsonville, the 5A standout. It's going to Idaho. One of the statistical leaders at the 5A level out of Wilsonville. So he's gonna do well. Definitely a kid that can be a possession receiver or play guy. And then speaking of Zach McEwen with the Sheldon roster and all the litany of D1 guys and everything they had this year, I think Zach was one of the more kids that went under the radar. So I like Coach Line grabbing him somewhat early.
Real quick, it looks like we're seeing too a trend, especially with this group. It highlights a recent trend. Idaho's done a really nice job recruiting the state of Oregon. It seems like they've made that a major priority. We've always seen Southern Oregon, Western Oregon. Those programs are going to recruit Oregon really in depth. Portland State grabs a handful of guys from the state of Oregon every year, but Idaho has done a really nice job in recent years of evaluating the state and finding those guys. There are a number of hidden gems, whether it's a Hogan Carmichael or some of the other names we've seen that you go, man, I really like that player. I wish he was recruited more. And sure enough, Idaho comes and swoops and grabs them. They've done a great job of evaluating the state in recent years.
Yeah, I've been impressed with them and a few other Big Sky schools coming in and doing what they have. You look at the results later down the line, a few of those mid-majors, the Utah States and Colorado States, they've done a good job coming into the Northwest, Oregon in particular, and picking off a couple kids here and there. So I agree with you. Idaho has really been on its game, offering kids early, a Gus Donnerberg, Westland type guy. They've done a really good job. So I would agree on that, Andrew.
Great. Okay, Coach Pyne, you're up for the final pick in the 3rd round.
We are selecting Ethan Burkhead, wide receiver from Thurston High School.
Jordan, Ethan Burkhead, thoughts?
Yeah, one of the fastest kids in the state. He's been hurt for 3 years down at Thurston. They're moving him to the running back spot. They got dudes coming back everywhere. Thurston will, per usual, be one of the better 5A teams in the state, but they have no running back. Ethan Burkhead will move to running back. He's been hurt for 3 years, so I'll be really interested to see how he does. Can he stay healthy, especially sustaining hits from that running back spot?
And if he can, look out, because he's got talent.
Agreed.
Great. So Coach Line, Team Willamette, we're going to start the fourth. You have up to 6 minutes now to get your 3 picks in, and we're going and switching gears to the defensive linemen. 3 picks to Team Willamette, followed by 5 to Team Columbia, and then 2 more to Team Willamette.
Jordan, I'm fascinated by, we've just seen Brock Thomas come through. We've seen Hogan Carmichael come through, a pair of really talented quarterbacks out of the state of Oregon that maybe were a little bit under-recruited for how much talent they really have. Crew Newman, a bit undersized, and as I mentioned earlier, he kind of gets that Bryce Young tab, that Bryce Young label going into the NFL draft, obviously in Bryce Young's case, where people say, I'm a little worried about the size. He does everything really well, but I'm a little worried about the size. I hear the same thing with Crew Newman, but he checks every box. His manipulation of the pocket, his understanding of the offense, and then also what he's seeing on defense. What do you feel like Crew Newman could be at the next level? I worry that he's going to be a little disappointed in where he ends up level-wise, but I think once he gets there, he's going to flourish and be one of the best players at that level anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I mean, Crew's the exception to the rule. Like, it size, speed, you got to have it these days. It just is what it is. But he's that small percentage of athlete that's so good, so dialed. He's going to do well. And I agree. He's going to be under-recruited. He'll have a couple D1 offers, but it won't be what he wants. And he's going to kill it. He's going to be he's going to be the best in the guy or something along those lines. He will play D1 ball. Once again, go look at the numbers. Who cares what I say or anybody else? I mean, the kid has been unreal for his entire career. So his ability, the stuff that he possesses so much you can't teach. So I can't say enough good things about Crew Newman.
Flipping over to Team Willamette, Coach Line drafted AJ Pugliano with his 2nd overall pick. We've seen just an explosion of tight end talent. For a while there, we had a lot of O-linemen, not a ton of great corners, but some good safeties. This run that we've had at tight end is just absolutely special. It began with Central Catholic's Riley Williams. This year, we've got kind of a wide receiver hybrid in Joey Olson out of Lake Ridge. Obviously, AJ Pugliano out of North Medford. You got Jaden Fortier out of Tualatin, Charlie Cromwell, a very talented player. It just seems like we just have tight end after tight end. There's an influx of them. And I know Riley Williams, All-American, borderline, he flirted with 5-star status for a while, obviously takes that top spot. But in this year's group, as good as they are, Joey Olson, AJ Pugliano, Jaden Fortier, you could make an argument that AJ is the best of the group.
Yeah, a lot of people have him ranked as the best group. Committed to Oregon. Joey Olson committed to SC. Charlie Crowell just got offered by Arizona. Has offers from other D1s. I personally have Jaden Fortier. I say it wrong every time, but Jaden listed as my number 1 recruit for 24. That's how good I think he is. He has a handful of Division I offers. So between those guys, Hayden George, 6'5", 6'4.5", 6'5", 230 out of Lebanon. That group, the tight end group currently in Oregon for the 2024 class, could be the best we've ever had. That's a bold statement, but I mean, they have the size, they have all the offers. It's a unique group. In Oregon, I can't say never, but we have not had a group like this with a Jaden Fortier and this group that we just referenced ever, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Fortier is an afterthought in that group currently, even though he's got offers and some Pac-12 offers. Plucked down 15 rebounds against West Lynn in the state championship game, obviously in basketball. That's a game full of D1 athletes. He's still shining and is the physical force inside with 15 boards. Recently ran 22 miles per hour on a treadmill, a special player. But again, AJ, a lot of people think he's the very best of the bunch. Certainly Dan Lanning thinks so. They go ahead and grab him, and I'm sure they're going to be really happy with him, as is obviously Coach Line picking him early in this year's draft.
Well said.
Okay, Coach Line, anytime you're ready, you have about a minute and a half left on the clock, and you can go with 3 picks, starting with all defensive linemen.
Okay, a minute and a half left.
Yep.
Hey, excuse me.
Jordan, we look at the history of the D-line group in the state of Oregon. There's been some really, really good ones. Obviously, the most dominant, I don't think it's a debate. It's Ndamukong Suh, who was really phenomenal in his time. Central Catholics had some good ones. What do you see in this year's best along the defensive line up front around the state? Who's maybe 1 or 2 of the guys that stand out to you as potential prospects to watch?
So Hayden George, the kid out of Lebanon that I just referenced as a tight end, you can call him an outside linebacker, you can call him a DN. There's a lot of kids that are the kind of the tweeners. You don't know if they're going to be a backer or, what they're going to be, but they're going to play a high level of collegiate ball. So I feel like this year's class, there's a lot of that. Richie Anderson, the Fresno State. I really like that. And I was surprised not to see more people, meaning Oregon State and a few others, go on him. Richie Anderson plays at a different level. So we're still seeing a lot of kids missed. It's not because of size. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'4 and a half, 235. They just missed him. So I still feel like some of our linemen, like Henry Mondu playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers the other night, or, a few months back when the season was going on, we've got those type of guys that come through this state. Alex Balducci, that played for the Niners, many others, played for Coach Pyne. We've had a bunch of NFL linemen, way more than we had in years past in the last decade. So this year it's going to be interesting because I feel like we got a lot of tweeners. So whether they're backers or DNs, it's going to be an interesting year, to say the least.
I'm ready, guys. So we're going to select Jackson Turi from Cascade Christian High School. The next pick is Maddox Carpenter from Central Catholic. Next pick is Kanoa Hayes from Central Catholic.
Okay, so Coach Pyne, you're going to have the next 5 picks, defense linemen. You got 3 minutes or whenever you're ready.
We are ready to rock here. With that, first will be Ryder McElroy from Wilsonville High School. Next will be Reese Hare from Tigard High School. The third pick for us will be Auckland Selfers from Rex Putnam High School. Then Lincoln Mason from Wilsonville High School. And finally, a name that we've heard a couple times on here already is Hayden George out of Lebanon High School.
All right, Coach Line sniping a few of Coach Pyne's guys at Central Catholic probably doesn't make him the happiest. But Jordan, let's start with Coach Line's Hall. What did you see from that group? Kanoa Hayes, Maddox Carpenter, and the young man out of Cascade Christian.
Yeah, Coach Line just straight swooped on a couple of Coach Pyne's, couple of his top guys right there. Maddox Carpenter, 6'1", 260, one of the best linemen in all of Oregon. He was first team All-League on both sides of the ball. He's just undersized. Pure talent-wise, though, definitely Maddox is that dude. He'll be a small college guy just because of size. Kanoa Hayes is a 2025. He's a guy that I love. I have him right top D lineman. A little bit undersized, but he's a dude. Another guy that's going to be an all-state kid. And then I don't know if people remember Derek Turi went to Arizona. He was a freighter back in the day. And it looks like Jackson Turi is a Cascade Christian. Cascade Christian just won the state title, Oregon 3A state champions. So I really like these picks. One thing these coaches aren't doing is they're not going down our rankings list and picking kids. They are using their own analysis and selecting. So I really like these picks for a variety of reasons, but that being one of them. It's they're definitely doing their own evaluations, which I love. Coach Pyne's picks. Another group, Hayden George. I'm a big advocate of Hayden, so I'm glad that he grabbed him. Ryder McElroy, one of the player of the year in the Northwest Oregon Conference. Same with Oakland's Putnam. Putnam, not traditional power, but he was the player of the year as well. So that's another pick that I really like.
Okay, great. Coach Line, you will be up in a minute 15 Coach Line, sorry, with the last two picks of this round.
Thought we'd let everybody catch their breath and also put some pressure on Coach Line. Let's get these picks in. Let's go.
Okay, we're gonna go with Brody Borovic from Marist High School, and then he's gonna have to be nice to me, but Suliasi Luala Pealu from Sherwood High School.
Okay, so that will end our fourth round. We'll be starting the fifth round. We're going to take anywhere from 10 to 20-minute regrouping breaks, so both staffs can now target the linebackers, DBs, offensive linemen, and the remainder positions from it. So whenever you guys are ready, you have up to 15 minutes to take that time to regroup, and we'll come back.
More than 250 names submitted by various coaches around the state for players to be drafted in this. Roughly, I think 90 of them end up getting taken. So it's a massive honor. And you hear from kids who have played in it before, now that they're underclassmen, there's this feeling that they want to get drafted again. I want to play in this again. It means a lot to them. It means a lot. They'll say it means a lot to me. Really cool to see some of the names on here, Jordan, because so many of these kids really want to be a part, again, not just of that game, but the entire week, where we see 2 years ago, Debo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne come and watch the game. For the evaluation day, Kendrick Bourne came and spoke for the event. So we see that outreach of former players who are now in the NFL, encouraging athletes to not only compete at a high level, but also to appreciate the moment that is the entire week of the Les Schwab Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, there's a lot of kids that have yet to be picked that are high profile type recruits. So it makes later rounds even that much more interesting with a lot of the top 15 to 20 guys in each class still on the board. We have a host of West Lynn kids, Joe Olson, Trent Ferguson, AJ Nolan. We could go down the list as it relates to underclassmen. And there's just a lot of dudes. So that's, in my opinion, as I look at who's been picked thus far, there's just so many guys left. It's going to make these, however many more rounds that much more interesting.
Can we talk about AJ Nolan for a minute? Like, when we talk about best prospects in the state, I know Joey Olson comes up. Devin Brooks, the offensive lineman out of Clackamas, comes up. AJ Pugliano comes up. Those are names that all come up. You want to look at who has the most offers right now, and yes, it's from various levels, but AJ Nolan, whether it's Ivy League, Big Sky, the Mountain West, and even starting to be some of those bigger schools, AJ Nolan is just a playmaker, and I feel like Tualatin athletes right now, as good as they've been, as successful as they've been, back-to-back state titles in basketball, a really talented football program. If I were a college coach and I were saying, where are the under-recruited talents right now in the state of Oregon, I'd be kind of wanting to swing by Tualatin and talk to Jaden Fortier and AJ Nolan, because I think both those kids have a chance to be quite a bit better than their current recruiting profile kind of indicates.
Yeah, I personally can't say enough good things about AJ Nolan. He's one of, if not my favorite player, just to watch in the state of Oregon. His overall athleticism, he's got 10 offers. Watch him on the basketball floor, 6'2", $185, first team all league, offense, defense, special teams. He literally checks every box. If a mid-major or even a Washington State, Oregon State, or somebody like that doesn't pick him up, I mean, that's borderline criminal. Like, he's good. So he's the guy that provides you with so many options. You don't need to know what he's going to play at that very moment. When he gets at that level and he's in your system, he can play 3, 4, 5 different spots. So I'm really glad you brought up AJ. Just a phenomenal kid. His brother Lucas played in the secondary for the University of Oregon. So he's got great genes. And we're going to hear a lot about that kid in this year.
Another athlete that I've been hearing quite a bit about, I asked a very high-profile national evaluator who he liked in Oregon, and he was saying, there's some really good talents. I'm not sure I'm ready to stand on the table for any of them that aren't recruited highly right now. I don't know if there's anybody that's about to emerge, but if we're just talking pure football player, if we're just talking pure talent, I kind of like West Lynn's Wiley Donnerberg the best of anybody in the entire state. That's a guy you've talked about as well. Wiley Donnerberg doesn't have a ton of offers, but of the kids who are kind of next to emerge, next to become a big time prospect, I should say, man, it sure seems like his time is now, right?
Yeah, so I have Wiley right now at number 3, but in the premise next to his name, I said it would not surprise me, or I would almost expect him to be number 1. I got Jaden there right now, Fortier, Wiley at number 3. But once again, I think he very well could be number 1 before it's over. Right now, he's been offered by Nevada, but this kid's ridiculous. Like, he's Pac-12 good. He's going to have 3, 4 Pac-12s before he's done. He's that guy. He comes from an extremely talented family, extremely, Division I genes. He's going to be a state leader, multiple categories. Yeah, I cannot say he's got the size, 6'4", 210 pounds. His brother Gus, twin brother Gus, is another D1 guy. So, he could end up number 1, and that's ahead of Joey Olson, committed to USC, AJ Pugliano, committed to Oregon. So that is a bold statement, but I couldn't agree with you more. Wiley is that good.
Yeah, and I feel like we keep doing this. We've had iterations of this, and you and I have been really high on Justin Herbert in the past before he was rated anywhere. I had Tegan Quatoriano as my number 3 player in the state, ahead of multiple 4-star guys. a year before. And then Luke Musgrave, you and I both had him. Luke Musgrave, potentially a first-round NFL draft pick, definitely a second-round NFL draft pick this year. We both had him as our number one player in the state when he was coming out of Bend about a year before everybody else. And it just seems like Jaden Fortier, A.J. Nolan, Wiley Donnerberg, when we're talking about next man up, the next names, you guys know Joey Olsen, you know Jaden, you know Devin Brooks, you know those guys. Here's the next guys that are definitely worth taking a peek at. On the opposite end of the spectrum in some ways, even though committed to Oregon, we talk about the finished product to some extent that is Wiley. Wiley's already a phenomenal football player. A.J. Nolan's a phenomenal football player. Trent Ferguson, the West Salem offensive tackle, I wouldn't describe him as a phenomenal football player yet. Here's the thing. He wouldn't describe himself as a phenomenal football player yet. Why? He's played 4 games. 4 games. A 6'7", 325 pounds, committed to the University of Oregon, multiple Pac-12 offers. Trent Ferguson said, I talked to him about it. He said, I grew up and I was a hooper. And then at some point, he kind of looked in the mirror and was like, I'm not really a hooper. I got to be doing something else. I got to be playing football. So mid-season last year, because he had an ankle injury, a foot injury that kept him out for some of basketball the year before, he missed 8 months of athletics. He decides, okay, I'll try out for football at West Salem. So he comes out and is again, mid-season last year, never played in his life, 6'7", 320 pounds. Hey, coach, I think I'd like to try football. So they assigned him a senior who helped him learn to put on pads. He'd never done it. If you've never put on pads, it's not super easy. Goes out and just starts pancaking fools. The technique's not phenomenal. The pass sets are not great. They're not technically sound, but just you're working with a block of marble. By the 4th game, he goes up against Sheldon. Adrian Clem, then the Oregon offensive line coach, is in attendance to see his son, Nico Clem, play in the game and is like, who's that kid? Decides to invite him on campus. He picks up an offer. Trent Ferguson since has been working with line pro coach Alex Lidenkohl, who I think is the best private O-line coach in the entire state. He's worked with Jackson Kirkland. He's worked with Cody Shear. He's worked with, I believe, Alex Forsythe. He's worked with many of the best offensive line prospects that have come out in the last decade. Does a phenomenal job, is tremendously honest and fair in his evals. He's working with Trent Ferguson. Trent Ferguson, as I mentioned earlier, when I started this whole rambling, not as finished a product as the Wiley Donnerbergs, the A.J. Nolan, but man, oh man, 6'7", 325 pounds, and moves like a basketball player. Oregon got themselves an interesting prospect.
Yeah, can you imagine what he's going to look like when he gets, in the weight room with the University of Oregon, eating the way they want him to eat at 6'7", 325, that athletic? When you see his athleticism on the basketball floor, just imagine, 14 games, 24 games, getting that experience so he knows what he's doing. Because, yeah, Lenny is the best line coach, hands down, anywhere in the region. And what did Trent do? Trent started Lenny right away. So kudos to him. Sean Stanley, his coach, is one of the best ever in Oregon. I can't say enough good things about Coach Stanley. So I'm really interested to see where Trent ends up. I mean, he could end up the best ever. We don't know. You can't say much after 4 games, but to Coach Clem's credit, he said, look, I can take this kid and make him special with what he's got now. So kudos on the commitment and what they got there in Mr. Ferguson.
Well, and that's what's so fascinating about rankings. That's why I think sometimes people have a hard time understanding rankings. Like, let's be candid. Like, Maddox Carpenter right now, undersized in terms of the college evaluation, but from a high school player technique understanding, he's at a higher level than Trent Ferguson. He just is. So, there's more experience, there's more savvy, there's more understanding of football. When it comes to college projection, obviously Trent Ferguson is a higher player, but you look at a guy like Maddox Carpenter and he's just phenomenal football player, ticks every box. You look at running back with Jesuit and Lonnie Burt, phenomenal running back who's played some fullback and kind of had to wait his turn at Jesuit High School and is that next man up. Sometimes these guys that don't have 20, 25 offers, it's not because they're not good football players. When you see them on Friday nights, they are sometimes the standouts above some of these guys with more offers. It's just that they're maybe a tick too slow, not quite the size you're looking for, but man, some phenomenal football players. And I really do think, especially as the two I mentioned, Lonnie Burt, Maddox Carpenter, two who are going to be very, very successful at the college level, regardless of size, regardless of speed. Those are two phenomenal football players.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said, I really enjoy, focusing or looking at numbers 20 through 40, or those kids in a class ranked, not 1 through 10. I mean, obviously we love to cover and see 1 through 10, but those Maddox Carpenters are the type of athletes that are going to be go be D3 All-Americans or go do well somewhere collegiately. So it's fun to speak on them. Sam Keen out of Marist, the player of the year, 4A player of the year, lineman of the year, just got offered by Rhode Island. Well, I mean, they play a D1 schedule. So, those are the type of kids that I like to talk about and acknowledge, because they have so much upside and they want to get better. So that's what makes this Les Schwab Bowl so great, is we get to acknowledge some of those kids that might not be on TV every Saturday, but will be playing collegiate ball.
Looking at Team Willamette with Silas Wallace, I just can't help. I think of Lonnie Burt. You can't not shout out that Jesuit O-line. I don't know if I can remember an O-line in the last 5 to 10 years in Oregon where guy by guy, all 5, you could make an argument that their best football was all state caliber. All five. And I just don't remember a group that was that good, that cohesive, man-to-man. And I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to be like in their next iteration. I know it's a factory. I know they're going to have another group, and I'm going to say, man, those 5 are good too. But I don't know if I could have possibly appreciated, they call them the franchise. I don't know if any iteration of the franchise was more enjoyable to watch in the history of Jesuit than last year's group. None of them are huge recruits, but they were all just incredibly good football players and probably didn't get enough credit for how good they were because, again, all 5, you can make the argument, were all state talents.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a Jackson Kirkland on their line from a notoriety standpoint, but they were, hands down the top line in the state. Silas Wallace being a big reason why. John Andreas, the line coach for Jesuit, the longest tenured line coach anywhere, and just from a pure, very, very similar to Alex Linenkohl, John Andreas has been around for 20 plus years coaching line. He could have taken a head job anywhere. John Andreas could have, but he instead has been pumping out Division I linemen at Jesuit, and last year's group was another, indication or realization of what they got over there. So yeah, it's fun to watch. I mean, it's no secret what Jesuit's going to do. Lonnie Burt better have his cardio in check because he's going to be, 30 plus carries a night coming this fall.
He's going to have a few nights where he has like 30 carries, 296 yards, 5 touchdowns. It's going to happen. And he's going to have some track meet games. Central Catholic, another school, obviously, that produces, just churns out elite talent. And I've kind of been curious about him from his freshman year. We saw him here. His introduction, the first time I think I saw him in pads anyway, was at this game, was Timmy Mitchell. He comes in and it's between his freshman and sophomore year. The very first year underclassmen are invited to the Les Schwab Bowl. He earns defensive back MVP, has a 99-yard defensive touchdown in the game on a scoop and score. And I remember on the broadcast, in part because I think Timmy Mitchell or somebody clipped it, and it was like, stop throwing it, Timmy Mitchell. You're not going to complete it. It's not going to work. And it's me on the color saying, like, just stop. He's not going to give anything up. What could Timmy Mitchell be? Because what we've seen in high school is that he's potentially, when healthy, he's Sauce Gardner at Central Catholic High School. It's just going to be interesting to see what he is as a college player.
Yeah, I mean, with Timmy, his notoriety from a young age was obviously, special, put him on the map early. But once again, he got hurt last year and couldn't really show all of what he could do. So Central Catholic, and this with as good as Westland will be, because it might be the best run of any program in the history of Oregon football coming up here, Central Catholic has a real shot to challenge them. And Timmy be the reason. He could be that X factor if Central beats or hangs with Westland next year.
It's a really fascinating group at Central Catholic because they've had years where you know who the guys are and they all have offers. Just all of, the Lamar Winston, Brady Breeze, coming up that next year was like Elijah Winston, Silas Starr, that whole group. They've had groups where you just knew early on they had multiple offers. There's a lot of prove it guys this year. Crew Newman, as good as he's been, and he's proved it on Friday nights, still to a lot of college coaches has to prove he's a prospect. Timmy Mitchell, just because he was hurt last year, still have something to prove. I know, Smith is the number one prospect arguably in 2025, but he still kind of has something to prove even with a Pac-12 offer early. There's some prove it guys. I would bet on them because I think they're really, really talented. But who are some of the guys at Central Catholic that you think are about to emerge and be proved it guys rather than prove it guys?
Well, let's talk about the number 2 pick in this entire draft. Zach Staskowski, and I'm probably brutalizing that last name, but 6'5", 250. He's the class of 2025, so he's only a sophomore right now, and he was just offered by Northern Arizona. So he's got a Division I offer, but he was the number 2 pick by Coach Pyne. So I would love to ask Coach what he sees, because he's had all these dudes, all these NFL guys, Division I guys in the last decade. So what made him pick Zach at number 2? That's what I would like to know. I could go on and on about the roster, but that would be, in my opinion, my number 1 question as of right now.
I can answer that. I think he's a more athletic reincarnation of Blake Brandel. He's more athletic, and he might be more aggressive as a sophomore than Blake was. And he's projected to be 6'8". Before he's done growing, and he's got a massive work ethic, and he's kind of got that, jerk streak in him, if you will, on the field. He likes to compete and he likes to dominate people, and he's just going to get better and better and better.
Wow. That was well said, Coach.
Sometimes guys like that don't really know how good they are, Coach, yet, and they're kind of not naive in a negative way, but just unaware of the potential they could have if they put in the work early. What do you see from him as far as grasping what he could be and wanting to take the reins there and really be that guy, more athletic Blake Brandel? If he's that and proves to be that, he's playing on Sunday because Blake.
Yeah. I think he projects to be a Sunday guy. Just how it is in recruiting. It takes a while for things to pop off sometimes, but like I said, his work ethic, he's really kind of a sponge on the field. He takes coaching very well. Our offensive line coach, Charlie Landgraf, does a great job. And it was funny, he was at the evaluation last Saturday, and Coach Landgraf is just kind of crawling in his ear, and he's just taking it and loving it and applying it, right? So he seems like a kid that's got the entire future ahead of him. God willing, he stays healthy, and like I said, the work ethic is there, and sky's the limit for him.
Two-way player for you next fall, or you primarily stick him at like a left tackle and just let him be the stud there?
Mostly left tackle. He will spot play defensively, but knock on wood again, hopefully we stay healthy enough we can kind of roll guys in and stay healthy that way.
Well, there you go, Jordan. There's your answer. More athletic Blake Brandel. That's certainly really exciting. And you look for kind of who's going to emerge from that 2025. And obviously there's a name to write down, bold, and send out to college coaches, because Pyne knows what he's talking about. He's produced a ton of them, and he's got the next one there.
Yeah, the 6'8" projection and all that stuff is so interesting and helpful when we're doing that, because we don't necessarily know a lot of that stuff. So I mean, with Coach Pyne and Charlie Landgraf, one of the better Jesuit linemen, to come through now coaching at Central Catholic. I think they're going to do extremely well. I didn't know, that he had that type of ceiling. So I think it's great to have that knowledge now when it comes to rankings and everything else.
Yeah, time to adjust. Let's just pause this real quick and move him up some spots.
Right.
Perfect.
Hey,
Thanks for your insight, guys.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Well, I think we're ready to start the fifth round with the linebackers and DBs. I know that Coach Pyne, you're on the next picks with 4, followed by Coach Lang with 6, and then back to you for 2. And just so everybody knows as well, if we get to a point where a team has their allotted number of players at that position, they can say, hey, this will be my final pick for linebackers, DBs, or my final pick for the offensive linemen. And we'll move those picks into the 7th round based on which side of the ball they're on. So, most likely it's going to happen because of the top 10 picks. So, Coach Pyne, you're up.
All right. With our first pick in the 5th round, we will Garrett Spear, linebacker, Jesuit. Next, we will take Vaughn Croxton, linebacker from Tigard. Then we will take Zach Davis, linebacker from Central Catholic. And with our 4th pick there, we will take Cade Galen, defensive back, Central Catholic.
Couple of Central Catholic kids, Coach Pyne. What do you see in those 2 young men that make them not only a great show, a great part of your team on Friday nights, but also a valuable asset in an all-star game?
Start with Zach. He started for us as a freshman on the offensive line for 9 games in our 21 team that won it. Played both sides of the ball last year. He projects as a linebacker. His skill set is really, he's a phenomenal technical offensive lineman when he's focused. But his skill set translates to the college level at linebacker spot, and started every game for us last year at outside linebacker. We'll probably, he has the versatility to move inside or be outside. He's a pretty efficient pass rusher. You might see him in this game lining up at defensive end so he can actually rush the passer. And then Cade Galen, for lack of a better compliment, he's a poor man's Ronnie Rust. And he loves contact, played running back for us, played safety for us this last year. Just isn't afraid of sticking his nose in things, runs extremely hard. In this game, he's a kid that can play outside linebacker, or he could drop back and play some safety, and we wouldn't lose a beat at either position.
Jordan, Garrett Spear out of Jesuit. We've talked about Lonnie Burt. We talked about that offensive line, but Garrett Spear, just a phenomenal player out of Jesuit. And you talk about kind of the heart and soul of that team. And certainly he's one of those names, just a big time playmaker and a great addition for Pyne. It's probably nice, he played against him in the Holy War. It's probably nice to have him on his sideline for an all-star game.
Yeah, the Metro League Defensive Player of the Year. I bet a lot of people don't know that. He's an undersized linebacker, but had a phenomenal season, and hence the Player of the Year accolades. So I like the pick. Vaughn Croxton, linebacker, 120 plus tackles last season, and then with Coach's 2 players that he just got from Zach Davis, I have my number 2 recruit in the whole class for 2025. So I think very, very highly of Zach. All-conference kid on both sides of the ball last year. I think he was kind of robbed. He was an honorable mention pick on D, but he'll be a first-team All-League kid, Player of the Year type candidate in the years ahead. He'll have numerous offers, and with what we just learned about Zach Oskowski, we Coach Pyne might have the top 3 ranked players in the state for 2025 between Zyle Smith, Zach, who we just picked, and the other Zach, our 6'8" potential lineman there. So that's really interesting. And then what he mentioned about Cade, the University of Portland baseball commit, a Division I baseball player. I love that pick, is what he does on both sides of the ball. Go pull up his stat line. You can't go wrong with the and Ronnie Russ analogy either on that front.
All right, great. Coach Line, you are up with 6 picks for the linebackers and DBs, then followed by 2 more picks for you, Coach Pyne and Team Columbia.
Okay, I'm ready. So we've selected Bryson Cackle from West Albany, linebacker. Henry Masters from Tiger, linebacker. Brady Owen from Gladstone, linebacker or DB. Montreal Brazil Jr., Jefferson. Andre Miller, Gresham. And Isaac Peters from Sheldon.
Isaac Peters, one of your own. What stands out about him, Coach, and what can he do for you in an all-star game?
Well, he really grew as a player, part of that senior group that really built back our culture. And I would say Isaac epitomizes just being a part of the team, doing whatever is necessary for the team. He had a really big game against West Lynn in week 2. And for a kid who probably, I wouldn't say his athleticism jumps off the board, but he finds a way to get things done. He's just a great football player. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to coach him one more time. He's going to go on to Eastern Oregon University and play football there. It's a great fit for him, but just a tough, hard-nosed kid who gets it done when asked to.
You've taken some kids from smaller schools, and I wonder how much is you were just grinding huddle film, getting ready for this game, versus how much the evaluation day was able to kind of inform your picks generally.
Well, I appreciated the evaluation day from that standpoint, but there's great players all over the place. And I think the cool thing about this opportunity is it gives coaches like myself and some of my assistants, Steve and his assistants, a chance to evaluate different players. It's real easy to get lost in our 6 classifications. There's a lot of kids out there that can really play, and it doesn't necessarily matter, whether they're from a small school or not. I mean, the Yates kid from Coquille last year, I don't know that he wasn't the best player on the field, and and he didn't look out of place, from the start of the week. And I know that the previous year I talked to Steve about him before the draft last year, and I had not seen him. However, I did see the Yates kid. I tried to recruit him to come Marshfield, but they are Red Devils, man. They don't mess around with any other school. It's Red Devils or nothing. So, but he had a surprise. He had a great freshman year at Southern Oregon University this year. I mean, he dominated this year. So he's gonna have a great career. But giving kids a chance to come play, it doesn't. Are you fast? Are you big? And you're strong? I mean, that's all that matters. So, we're excited about these kids from smaller schools.
Okay, Coach Pyne, you are up with the final 2 picks of the 5th round.
All right, we are selecting Jaden Moses, linebacker from Grant, and Max Kirsch, defensive back from Nelson High School.
Jordan, we've seen Jaden Moses play since he was younger on the radar, and has really been a difference maker for that Grant team for a couple of years now. What are your thoughts on him as a player?
Jaden was the only kid in Oregon to earn first team all conference honors as a freshman at Grant. So he put himself on the map early. We all were like, who is this kid? And then he just remained Mr. Consistent for 4 years. Whatever he does collegiately, he's just a really kid that I think we all really like. And he's deserving of this selection and some. Just a super, super good kid. To touch on what Coach Line just said, Griff Yates' son, Griff was an All-American at Southern Oregon and went on to play for the 49ers. So I couldn't agree more with last year that Yates was probably the best player on the field. Just, it doesn't matter what level of play, if you can go prove it. And this is a perfect example of a game where you can. So I was, really good to hear that. And just as a side note, Bryson Ketchel, the kid from West Albany, 6'3", 225-pound outside linebacker, tight end. He was player of the year within his conference. The only kid to earn first all-state honors as a freshman on both sides of the ball. So that pick in particular, I really like with Bryson Cates. I think he could be the next kid up to get an offer for that 2024 class. I have him ranked number 9 in the state right now, and I think the first 8 guys have offers. So I take a quick note on that pick as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I've seen a lot of these guys, so I kind of know what I'm going into when I come to a Les Schwab Bowl. For the most part, over the course of multiple years, I've seen them all. He was the name, I think, that was probably at the top of my list, or in the top 2 of my list of guys I was most interested to see and how he would compete in a this. I will be watching him extremely closely in this game because, like you mentioned, he's a kid who could pop here pretty quick.
Yep, agreed. He's great pick. Braid Owen, the kid out of Gladstone that was just selected by Coach Line as well. A lot of people don't know about Braid because he's playing 4A ball. But if you go watch what he did on the 7-on-7 circuit with part of Team Lillard, and then go watch his film, I mean, he dominated kids. And, rightfully so. The 4A football in Oregon doesn't get a lot of notoriety, and I understand why. But that's a kid where they obviously did their research, and selecting Braid was a great pick.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. When you are at a small school and you're really that dude, you better dominate. Don't just be pretty good if you're at a small school. If you're a dude, go wreck people. And we've seen that from both of these young men. They go and just dominate on Friday nights.
Yeah, like you said, you have playing the biggest knock that we hear when talking to coaches collegiately is, who are you playing against? Who are you playing against? And you hear it time, and I get it, and it makes sense. Who are you going against? So if you're even playing 6A ball, it's tough. But 5A ball on down, you better destroy your opponents if you want to play a high level of collegiate ball. And Braid did a really good job.
Okay, we're moving on to the 6th round. We're going with the offensive lineman now. Coach Line and Team Willamette, you have the first 5 picks, followed by Team Columbia with 7, and then 2 more for Team Willamette. And again, this will start the area if you have enough players already at those positions and you want to move a pick to the 7th or 8th round. You just need to announce, like, I'm done with the offensive lineman. I'd like to take 1 pick, move it to the offensive side of the ball or the defense side of the ball, and we'll add it to that round. So, Coach Line, you're up when you're ready.
Jordan, just quickly from a prospect standpoint, I know we mentioned the tight end position is the best in Oregon right now. If you're looking at a depth position in terms of just talented, good, savvy football players, I kind of lean towards the offensive line as the position that is the most well coached and is the best in the state of Oregon. There's a lot, and some of them are undersized, as we've mentioned. But we've got that top end talent with guys like Devin Brooks out of Clackamas, Trentford, West Salem, committed to Oregon. Devin Brooks just announced he's down to Oregon, Washington, and USC. But there's also depth. We talked about Jesuits, the franchise. All 5 of those are great. Central Catholic had some really good ones. West Lynn had some good ones. Sheldon had some good ones. There's been some really good alignment. And I think from just a pure high school standpoint, it might have been the toughest of any position in the state to be first team, second team, all state these past couple years at offensive line, because there's been a lot of really talented guys.
Yeah, I mean, check out, West Lynn, where we're going to talk about them nonstop in the coming years. Take a Jake Normoyle. Jake Normoyle is, in my opinion, very similar to Alex Forsythe. One of only 3 sophomores to earn all-state honors this past season. He's going to have, half the Pac-12. He's 6'4", 290. He can play center, guard, even tackle at the high school level. Baron Naoni, his teammate, just offered by San Diego State. Both of these kids are current sophomores. I want to make sure and mention them because they're going to be high-profile recruits. Like I said, possibly win a state title and not lose a football game the rest of their career. But those are the type of kids that we're going to be talking about on the line in the coming seasons, both offensive and defensive line, with Barron projecting more as like a D-end, tight end type kid. But yes, it's Trent Ferguson, Devin Brooks, some of these guys, it's definitely a strong suit within Oregon over the last decade and a half, especially like at Central Catholic, Jesuit, and some of the power state.
All right, just informed that Coach Line is coming in with his.
What do you got for temperature there, Jordan?
95. Yeah.
Give us 15 degrees. We'll trade you the last pick in this draft for 15 degrees in Oregon.
Yeah. I'm good.
Okay. Thought I'd try.
Yeah, it's nice, man.
All right, Coach Line, you're up.
Okay, we're going to take Sam Keene from Marist, Ryan Yakovich from Sheldon, Peyton Parrish from Sunset, and Gabe from Sandy.
Coach Line, you get one of your own, but also Sam Keene from Marist, who's a phenomenal football player. Your thoughts on this group as a whole, and specifically those two?
Well, they're just I actually just got a chance to see Gabe and Peyton last week at the evaluation, and they really impressed me. Obviously, there were several linemen that really performed well at that event, but those two are kids I hadn't seen before, and watching them move around against quality athletes really impressed me. So Sam Keene I've known about. He played last year, did a great job, real big physical kid. Is just his attitude is perfect for offensive line. Hard to find kids like that. And Ryan Yakovich was probably one of our better linemen this year. Kind of a kind of really grew into himself this year, especially going against Tatum Tuioti. Tatum was a huge blessing to Ryan because Ryan probably lacked a little bit of confidence going into this season that he could be a big time lineman, and getting a chance to work against a quality athlete like Tatum, it just strengthened his confidence. So this group is solid and can move people around. I'm pretty happy with them.
All right. So, Coach Pyne, if you're ready, you have 7 picks, followed by Willamette and Coach Line with 2.
We are going to take our 7th pick here and move it into round 7, if that's agreeable. We are selecting Cody White, offensive lineman from Estacada. Drew Corcoran, offensive line from Tualatin. Mitch Malum, offensive line from Liberty High School. Dylan Din, offensive lineman from Grant. Jace Evelyn, offensive lineman from Rex Putnam. And Trent Ferguson, offensive lineman from West Salem.
Coach Pyne, Mitch Malum, Liberty. I imagine he's got some ties to Eric Malum, who played
very
at Cal.
Close ties, yeah.
Yeah, he played at, I believe he played at Cal and then played in the NFL for a bit. Obviously, some big names on this group and a really talented group. What stands out to you about this collection of talent?
Well, there's some size in this group and there's some athleticism in this group, and the way that we've talked about kind of building our offensive line, this kind of fits what we're looking to do. And there's some multiplicity, guys that can play a couple different spots in this group. And, and then a nice caveat with Mitch is he's also a long snapper. So now we know we have that. So that's always a concern in this game. Do you have somebody that can snap it 7 yards back or 15 yards back on the punt? So we're excited about this group and excited to see what the buzz is on Trent Ferguson, and see if Coach Landgraf can coach him up during the week and get him going.
That'll be a great week.
Talk to another.
That'll be a great week for him. And same with Jace Evelyn to some degree playing at Putnam. Those two guys working with Landgraf, it'll be interesting to see how much they develop over the week, because if they soak that in, they could make some major strides here in just a week, because he's one of the best around.
Absolutely.
Cody White from Estacada, your first pick in this round. Small school guy. To be completely candid, we're getting into some maybe one of the first couple guys I don't know much about. What stands out about Cody, and where did you see him that he jumped out to you?
Well, Coach Mata's on our coach staff, and this is obviously one of his guys that he spoke highly of. Watched his film. He's really athletic, kind of long, lean kid, aggressive. Looks like he likes to compete. I don't think Coach would have nominated him had he not been that type of guy. So you always, in this game now that we're taking younger kids and taking kids from different classifications, like it was said earlier, there are some hidden gems out there, and those guys get a chance to showcase against, what we believe are some of the best players in the state. So it'll be one of those secret swim weeks, so my guess is he's going to swim just fine.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to move into the 7th round. This is when the kickers come off the board, and then remainder of any offensive positions, except Line. I think Coach Line, actually you have one more pick, right? And you want to move one pick? Yeah,
I'd like to. We're going to go ahead and, how much time do I have left? Don't I have a little bit of time?
Yeah, if you want to wait on that.
I'd like to move one of our picks to the 8th round for a defensive player.
Okay.
I'll take the next 2 here just in shortly.
So you got 1 then, because you had 2 remaining. Move 1.
Well, I had 2 remaining, but I didn't take 5 in the last round. I only took 4.
Okay, so that's the one you want to move? You want to go with 2?
Right.
Okay, got it. You're on the clock then.
Jordan, interesting duo in Jace Evelyn out of Putnam and Trent Ferguson out of West Salem. You don't see guys in Oregon that often with their blend of size and athleticism. In both cases, a little bit raw, technically a little bit raw in terms of power, plenty of that. In terms of length, plenty of that. It's just going to be interesting to see how those two guys develop if they reach their peak, both physically, look like Sunday guys. It's going to be really, really fascinating to see what happens with them. What do you see from Jace and Trent that make them two of the more compelling offensive line balls of clay that we've seen come out of Oregon in the past few years?
So Coach Pyne just took 3 kids in that round. They're all 6'7". So I thought that was worth noting. Trent, 6'7", 325. Jace Evelyn, 6'7", 330. And then Cody White, 6'7", 275, something like that. But he plays for the 4A state champions, Estacada. He's a winner. But yeah, I mean, how rare is it to have 3 6'7" kids on board at the same time in the state of Oregon? That doesn't happen often or ever. So anyways, I thought that was, Jace Evelyn's ranked, I think, my number 6 recruit in the 2025 class right now. All the potential in the world, the player of the year as a sophomore within his conference, the NWOC, the 5A level, a bunch of, state champions, guys that have won. I already talked about Trent Ferguson, but also Drew Corcoran, the senior that's graduated from Wallaton. Definitely worth noting. All conference kid on both sides of the football, all state kid on both sides of the football. Doesn't have big size like these other guys, but one of the best in Oregon, no doubt.
This is going to be great for both Jace and Trent. Trent still developing, fully knows that, and as you mentioned, is attacking that, working with Coach Lenny and making strides. By all accounts, this offseason is going to be fascinating to see what he is. We talked about earlier, if you're in a smaller school, I want to see you absolutely pancaking and dominating. With Jace, we see it sometimes. We don't see it all the time. And my challenge to him, and I think, frankly, college coaches' challenge to him at this point, is show, if you're going to be at Putnam, show that you can dominate every rep. And I think at this Les Schwab Bowl, he's got a week in front of some really, really well-connected high school coaches who talk to college coaches. He's got a chance to show them rep in, rep out that he can be a dominant football player. If he can, he'll rise up boards and scholarships will follow. If he can't, there will still be some questions. So my challenge to Jace is to really attack this week and impress guys like Pyne and the coaching staff there, because they have the ear of college coaches. And if he dominates and plays like he's physically able to play, college scholarships are going to follow.
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge for kids within Oregon. If you're playing small school ball or 5A on down, or if your schedule is lacking strength, you really got to spend a lot of time in the off season going to find the best competition you possibly can. Go do well, obviously, and make sure that you have that recorded or something so you can show. Because once again, if you go look at Putnam's schedule, no fault to them or him or whatever, but they didn't play anybody. I mean, they played a bunch of 4A schools. So it's really hard from a ranking standpoint. Once again, who did you play against? Who are you playing against? And if it's nobody, it doesn't, it's really tough to justify that. And that's what I hear, you hear, and a lot of people hear, constantly. So if I'm him and other guys that are playing, against questionable competition, go get the best, go find the best players nationally that you can go against and see where you're at. That way you can self-assess where you are.
I know Trent's doing that. Trent's gone to some camps. Trent's working with Lenny. And I know Jace has taken some major strides, and that's not a knock. If you play at a smaller school, to prove how good you could be on a recruiting scale, you need film against other elite guys. And this Les Schwab Bowl, especially now underclassmen here, this event's pretty loaded with good dudes, with notable players. If you can dominate your reps in practice, if you could dominate your reps in this game and really stand out, you've got a chance to really open some eyes. And I think Jace Evelyn's one of those guys who's a chance to change the way he's viewed with a good week.
Yeah, player of the year within the conference. He's done exceptionally well. Great kid. Has all these intangibles, 6'7", 330. So he's got a lot going for him. But once again, you need to go prove yourself on a regional and national level. These next few months need to be about that. And then obviously come dominate, your Oregon competition as well.
Great. On that note, Coach Line, Team Willamette, you have the last 2 picks of the 6th round.
Okay, we will be selecting, Dawson Relling from Marist High School, offensive lineman, and Tanner Thomas from Sheldon High School, offensive line.
Okay, so now we're going into the 7th round. We have kickers coming off the board, remainder of any offensive positions, and the numbers change a little bit with the carryovers. So Coach Pyne, Team Columbia, you're up first with 7 picks, followed by Coach Line, Team Willamette, you have 9 picks, and then we'll go back to 2 for Team Columbia. So Coach Pyne, whenever you're ready, starting the clock, you have 3 minutes, or jump when you want to make your picks.
We will be ready in probably about a minute.
Okay, Jordan, you're on the clock for about a 30-second answer. Who is the player in the state of Oregon that you think takes the biggest statistical leap from last year to this year? In other words, good player, maybe it was waiting on opportunity, or finally old enough to now be a starter, who you think is going to take off and be one of the state's most special guys on Friday night?
Wow.
How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Because we've already talked about some of these guys.
Lonnie Burt's the easy answer, right?
Well, yes. And yes. He's going to have 30 carries a game. He's going to go for 200 every night. You can do some math. Usually Jesuit plays 12, 13 games a season. So he's going to be a 2,500 yard, 30 plus TD rusher. That would be one. I would say Wiley, but they got so many weapons that they are going to distribute the ball around. Wyatt Smiley is a sophomore, 6'3", 70. He just higher than any kid at that 2025 class on my board for West Lynn. And that will be interesting. His younger brother is a freak. He's a phenom. He's going to be – but Wyatt Smiley might be that guy at wide receiver. Also, Hudson Hardy is going to move into that running back spot for West Lynn, most likely. 6'3", 200 pounds, plays outside linebacker. Once again, I know we're going to talk about West Lynn all the time, but some of these kids referencing right now, you're going to hear their names all the time. They will be big-time recruits. And if you look at a Wyatt Smiley, Hudson Hardy type combo, we're gonna see those kids be featured athletes this season, and they're underclassmen as well. So I would mention those guys per your question.
You kind of cheated and just picked the entire receiving core that's next up for West Lynn. Fair enough. I'll allow it.
Yeah, well, good. So, yeah, I did cheat. You're right.
All right, we are ready to go. I'll fire up here. We are going to, with our first pick in the 7th round, is go with Connor Calvert, kicker from Mountain View High School over in Bend. Next is Jadon Seiler, running back from Nelson High School. Next up will be Cooper Belts, wide receiver, Clackamas High School. Next will be Rayshawn Jones, wide receiver from Baker High School. Next will be Ethan Carlson, wide receiver from Summit. Followed by Blake Hurley, wide receiver from Sunset. And then finally, Brett Bowen, tight end, Kennedy High School.
Okay, Coach Line, you'll be on the clock for 8 picks. Starting now.
Jordan, Cooper Belt's an interesting kid in the sense that he really had to wait his turn at Clackamas High School. They did Jalen Hammer, Thomas Tolan, and a collection of really, really talented receivers. And, you know, it progressed up with Williams and a number of other players. And he really had to wait. And he was option 3, option 4 early in his high school career. He really blossomed in this final year as a go-to option and was a really special player, now getting obviously a college opportunity, I believe it's Central Washington, but just really cool to see a kid who stayed with the school that, you know, he could have maybe had an opportunity somewhere else to play earlier, but he stayed within that program, earned his playing time. And once he finally got the opportunity, absolutely flourished. One of the better stories in the state, really, at the 6A level at the wide receiver position last year.
Yeah, big kid, 6'3", $190, $195. Like you said, he had to wait his turn. Clackamas went 5-6 last year. You know, Nelson took a lot of those kids. So it's a different scenario at Clack now than it was 5 years ago, 7 years ago when they won the state title. So Cooper, Central Washington, good score for them. I do want to mention one thing. Rayshawn Jones, the freshman out of Baker, Oregon, who was just selected, ran the fastest time in America as an 8th grader in the hurdles. He was all-state as a freshman at Baker, 6'2", $195. So remember the name, Rayshawn Jones. I just came out with a top freshman list last week, and he was number 7. It's hard to say if he's 3, 13, whatever. Good score for them. When you're the fastest 8th grader in America, it's worth noting that you have that guy on your roster. And that's what makes the Les Schwab Bowl so great now, in my opinion, picking a freshman. It's kind of like Timmy Mitchell. You know, we're going to be able to see this kid now that is one of the fastest kids in the country. You don't see him in Baker, Oregon. So I really, really like that pick as well.
Hey, Dan Nemec, someone's father, a long time ago, was a pretty good blocking fullback at Baker High School, went on to play at Eastern Oregon. I'm very partial to the Baker Bulldogs, the purple and gold. I'm happy to be a big fan of those programs. The Nemec family all still lives in Baker, Oregon, believe it or not. So I always pay attention to how Baker's doing. I check their scores every Friday night. I have since I was very, very young. So I'm very partial to Baker, really excited about Jones. And I believe it or not, I've actually heard about him because I try to stay in the loop with what's going on with Baker athletics. So this one does not surprise me, although as a freshman, I am curious to see how he does in the Les Schwab Bowl.
Yeah. Once again, it makes this so much more interesting. This draft scenario, going and getting a 14, 15-year-old kid and putting him up against seniors that are going to go play college ball next year. That's what we love to see, because if you can compete now, what are you going to do 2, 3, 4 years from now? You got a pretty good shot if you continue to progress. So I really love changes made to the bowl game.
Yeah, and we see this in the 7-on-7 circuit too. We see it all over. But Darius Clemens was a kid coming out, and he's now at Michigan. He was a kid who was coming out as a 7th and 8th grader and trying to get reps in against like Elijah Molden and those guys, and they were just abusing him early. But you saw him as, you know, transition from, you know, overwhelmed to like, dude, he caught a ball. All right, good for you, little Darius. And then it was like, oh, he's big Darius now, and oh, he's dominant now. Sometimes these early reps, it's not about dominating early. It's about learning what you need to be. It's about understanding the expectation. What's my next hurdle? I mean, no pun intended in this case, but I already know I'm an All-American. I already know I'm the fastest kid probably in Baker. I know I'm the fastest kid in the nation for 8th graders. What do I need to do to stack up against quality future college players around the state? And this will be a good experience for him to understand, what do I need to do to reach that next level in my game and in my development? And if he takes that and learns from that and uses it as a launching off point, we could be talking about him down the road as the number of stars next to his name, 3, 4, 5 stars, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with Darius. So many kids. That kid is the hardest worker in the room. He is on ESPN. He's going to be an NFL guy, the whole deal. But he never stopped working. He found the best competition, got whooped time and again, but came back, grew into his body. He's now 6'4" and will start at Michigan this year. That work ethic is what's necessary if you're going to, have a chance to compete, per what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I'm ready, guys. We're going to go ahead and take Luis Perez, Regis, kicker, punter. Esteban Mendez from South Salem. Jackson Watson from South Salem. Connor Grant from Tigers. Nico May from Central Catholic. Walker Bernard, Thurston. Pete Pennington from Churchill. And Owen Bruner from Kennedy High School.
All right, Coach Pyne, you are on the clock with the final 2 picks of the 7th round.
All right. We'd like to take 1 pick here and then move our next pick into the defensive next round. We will take Lathan Thompson, tight end, Sandy.
Okay, so that will finish the 7th round. Going to the 8th round, numbers will change just a little bit. We're going 3 to Team Willamette, followed by 4 to Team Columbia, then 2, 2, and 1. And the clock starts now. So Coach Line, you will be the next one up.
Jordan, when you look around the state, there are a number of fan bases that are really passionate. I don't know if anybody's student section does a better job than the Tiger Army. Scappoose just has an awesome game day atmosphere. It's that like smaller school, really passionate fan base. Westland, where they come down through the stands onto the field. Sandy has a really passionate community. I covered Sandy athletics for a few years early in my career. Who are some of the game day standouts in terms of environment that really stand out to you? You go, man, that community just treats it kind of differently.
Yeah, I mean, Tiger is well known on a Friday night. Most people within the community are there. It's consistently been one of the loudest, just the way the setup they have there with the stadium in the background. Tiger does a phenomenal job. I mean, that's kind of a given. Sherwood, that Sherwood community is I really love the one horse town for the analogy. Just, they really care about their football from youth on up. They're doing the same thing. I think a lot of the programs that are successful at the high school level start early. Tualatin starts early. They're learning as a youngster what they do at the high school level. The coaches have done a really good job of bringing them up and teaching them the way things are going to be when they get to that level. So Sherwood, I love, what they do on a Friday night. Tiger, Tualatin, all kind of in that same proximity. If you go down south, no one will play good against a good Grants Pass team at their facility. It's a very hostile environment. You're like kind of bobbing and weaving. You get out of there, okay? So it's a really good question on your part. There are some fun places to play, and those schools in particular do a good job.
I went to a game in Scappoose, called a game in Scappoose a couple years ago. 1080, we did the game of the week Friday nights. And it was like monsoon weather. I mean, it rained. We were in the booth and it was raining sideways, so I was getting just soaked anyway. And there were a ton of people in the stands, and the town was mostly shut down. I got, lights on most of the way through town. I get into Scappoose, and some of the lights are off because businesses are closed for the game. I was really blown away by Scappoose, and I will treasure that memory for a long time, because literally walking, I couldn't walk on the track. That's how wet it was without it getting above my shoes into my socks. And still, there were hundreds of people at the game. And Scappoose obviously picked up a dub, but it was a top 10 matchup, just a phenomenal environment. I have so much respect for the community of Scappoose and the way that they support their athletes. Sandy, again, another one, covering them for multiple years. I just love the passion of the Sandy community, whether it's a softball game, baseball's huge in Sandy, wrestling's big in Sandy. They do a phenomenal job of supporting their athletes.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. Like, even if you look around the Northwest, you take Yelm, who just won the state title up in Washington. Where's Yelm? Well, Yelm was one of the most dominant teams within the region that we've seen in many, many years. Southwest Washington, Camas, Union, running through those helmets with smoke blowing out of them, and all the businesses shut down, gone to the game. Those are the really cool things that I think makes high school football so special and so pure, and why I think you and I have both loved it for, since we were younger. So,
and as great as those Washington teams are, and for years it felt like Washington teams would play the best in Oregon and beat them. Last year, Oregon high school football made a major statement with both Wesleyan and Central Catholic picking up big wins against a couple of the best teams in Washington. And I think Oregon earned some real respect and some real bragging rights in that Northwest rivalry between the top teams in Oregon and Washington. And I think Oregon can make a strong case that they had some of the better teams in the Northwest finally, for the first time in a long time, with real gusto, make that claim.
Well, Coach Pyne, kudos to Coach Pyne, because they went up to Bellevue and beat the defending undefeated state in the opener. And I said, no way. And they went and did that. And they've beaten bad numerous times in the last few years. Central Catholic deserves a ton of credit, and what Coach Pyne has done, remarkable. So I'm glad you brought that up. Wesleyan beat the Washington 4A state champion 45-6 last year. Absolutely destroyed them. So last year, we'll see if it continues, was a turning point in Northwest football. Oregon teams beating up on Washington.
Okay, guys, I'm ready to go for my 3 picks in the 8th round. We're going to take Parker Williams from South Salem as a defensive back, Tashi Croft from Lake Ridge as a linebacker, and Jalen Moore from Sherwood as a defensive back.
And Coach Pyne, you're going to be on for 4 picks, followed by 2 to Willamette, 2 to Columbia, and then 1 back to for the 8th round.
All right. Okay, so with our 4 picks here, we're going Dominic Nacosta, defensive end from Estacada. Austin Getz, linebacker from Tigard. Trey Derringer, defensive back from Scappoose. And Nick Collier, defensive back from Wilsonville.
Great. Coach Line, Team Willamette, you guys are on the clock for 2 picks. And then Coach Pyne, you'll have 2 more after that.
Jordan, you mind giving us a rundown of Coach Pyne's picks here this last, I think, 6 selections? What stood out about that group?
Yeah, well, okay, so with Coach Line, Parker Williams, Jalen Moore just selected. Jalen Moore, a 3-star national recruit, and Parker Williams, both of these Team Alpha 7-on-7 kids, had an unreal offseason, one of the best 7-on-7 programs in the nation over the last few months. So I want to make sure and acknowledge what great picks those were with Parker Williams and Jalen Moore, both at your DP position. But yeah, with Coach Pyne's, you were just talking on Scap, Trey Derringer, a kid that very few people know about playing 4A ball. He's been a stat leader numerous the last couple seasons. Definitely noteworthy. Austin Getz headed to Portland State. Great get there, one of the leading tacklers in the Three Rivers League. And then Acosta out of Estacada. Once again, we're talking 4A football, but the state champions out of Estacada, and Acosta was another kid that helped them win that title this past year. So I'm really liking these picks. A lot of super talented kids, yet kids with accolades who won this past year. So great selections, I would say.
Where's the 5-round selection picks for fullbacks? What's going on?
They don't make them anymore, guys.
Oh, that's right.
Those don't anymore.
Oh, dude. Coach Line's got to be upset about that.
Yeah, it's just not the way it used to be. But I've had a few guys that can fullback. We haven't had a fullback. I haven't had a fullback in a long time. Am I up?
Yeah, you are.
Steve,
you have 2. Yep, you got 2.
Okay, I'm gonna take 2 picks here. Gabe Haynes from Central High School, and Keaton Freed from Sherwood as a linebacker.
Okay, and then Coach Pyne, you guys have 2, and then Coach Line, you'll have 1 more to finish out the 8th round. And we'll go into the alternate round.
Jordan, looking at the landscape of Oregon football at the 6A level, it does seem like you mentioned earlier, there's been a shift with Clackamas and Nelson, and it's really looking like, having spoken to a number of folks there, I still live in the area, that a lot of the talent is going to be more on that Nelson side of things. We're also seeing some changes in the Metro League, some shifting of talent. Who are a couple of schools around the state at the 6A level that you see kind of emerging as programs that maybe aren't there right now as top 10 programs in the state, or maybe they are, maybe they're 7, 8, 9, but they're about to make the jump up to the top 5, or a program that was an afterthought that is now going to be a top 10 team going forward? Does anybody stand out as kind of maybe the next program to emerge in that spectrum?
So you look at like Mountainside out in Beaverton, a newer program, had a 10-2 season last year. They've got huge numbers with the youth. The numbers are so down across the board in football. When you see someone with those type of numbers, you have a line. You have people that can be backups if you have injuries. Mountainside has that luxury. They got Keenan Lowe. We'll see how he does, but they got dudes coming up, and they got numbers. That's a program that I really like to do well in the coming seasons. It's an interesting question because you look at a Beaverton and a Southridge, 2 programs that have been dominant over the years, and respectfully, they can hardly field a team. Or Southridge dropped down to 5A level. You would have told me that 5-10 years ago, I would have never believed it. And these are things that maybe they aren't said a lot, but they should, because it's important to figure out why. And I get there's redistricting, and there's this and there's that, resource, and so on. But that's an interesting dynamic. And, the Nelson Clackamas thing. I mean, Clackamas has had a phenomenal decade. And last year we saw a little bit of the effect of Nelson taking those kids, So I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see who can manage, who needs to drop down a level. I mean, Ashland is playing 4A football this year. I mean, they used to be the best team in Oregon. Marshfield, ask Coach Line. I mean, it used to be Marshfield versus Ashland in the state title game. So that now those are 2 4A teams. So we see a completely different dynamic. We in my top 10, early top 10, I have all 6 Three Rivers Leagues teams in the top 10, including Oregon City, Lake Ridge, Oregon City as well in my top 10. So we see Central Catholic Jesuit and basically the whole TRL in the top 10. So that's a long answer, I know, but that's my elaboration.
Is it ours or is it Josh's? I'm confused by this point in time.
You guys have.
I've got
2.
1 pick left, but you got 2.
I've got 2 right now. Okay, great. We're going to take Milan Clark, defensive back from Grant, and Shaw Stark, defensive back, athlete, could be a wide receiver, Henley High School.
Swiss Army knife, Henley.
Yes.
Coach Line, if you're ready.
Okay, we're going to take Caden Huppen from Westview High School with our final pick.
Okay, so that will fill out the 2 40-man rosters on each team. And then for the final round, each team gets 5 alternate picks that we'll take in a row, starting with Team Columbia, followed by Team Willamette. And we'll do that in 3 minutes.
Jordan, you look at the 5A level in the state of Oregon, and I really do think it hit a pretty significant lull for 3, 4, or 5 years where just the level of talent had kind of come down. And it does look like things might be maybe sort of kind of picking back up. We know the top tier kids can hang. We've seen that in this Les Schwab Bowl year after year. It's a depth issue with their top teams. Are you starting to get the sense that maybe 5A, especially those top 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, kind of all have a shot at the state title and that the talent's getting a little better?
I mean, I would like to say yes. I mean, Wilsonville's
come on, man.
Wilsonville's a clear-cut number 1 this year. Summit, like I said, I like doing the combo rankings where you include the 5A with 6A just to see where they rank with together. Like I had Summit last year at number 7 overall with 6A included. One of the better 5A programs in the state. The year before, they made it to the 6A quarterfinals. So that kind of spoke to that program, but they graduate a ton of kids. Summit graduates most of that state championship team. So it will be interesting to see. But Thurston, Coach Stark does such a great job. Those Intermountain schools, I really like what Ben's been playing good football recently. So Coach Crum at Mountain View does an outstanding job. So I Wilsonville, Summit, Thurston, additional teams, yes. As a whole, I mean, kind of yet to be determined, but we'll find out one way or the other, pretty shortly.
Well, and I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at, is not necessarily that the depth of 5A is elite, but just there's been some years recently where it's like, well, it's this 5A team and not much else. it does look like there's a crop of pretty good 5A teams at the top. And once there is that competitiveness at the top, it does seem like it breeds, more competitiveness, frankly, among the schools further down. You need that where there's 4 or 5 teams that have a shot to win it and are really talented and really good and kind of pushing each other. I do think this next season, we are going to see 2, 3, 4 different teams with a shot to win the state title who, once it gets to that Final Four, you're going to have to play your best ball. It can't just be, we're just going to roll the ball out there and beat you by 60. There were Sherwood teams back in the day that just smoked people at the 5A level by 40 points every game. And obviously they moved up to the 6A level, but I don't think we're going to see that next year where it's just 40-point wins for somebody all the way through. I think you're going to have to play good football late in the playoffs to have a chance to win. And in that way, I do feel like 5A is a little healthier than it's been the past couple years.
Well, it's a good point. Canby, for example, Jimmy Joyce, one of the best coaches in the state of Oregon, any classification, takes that program. They got a bunch of young kids. Canby has been a 6A team, as most know, for they play 6A ball in most sports, but they're playing 5A ball now, and I understand why. They're going to be a title contender, in my opinion, 5A title contender. So yes.
You talk about toughest places to play and environment. When that Canby community is invested and all in, it is tough to find a parking spot to get into the stadium, and then it is tough to win a game at Canby. Back in the day, they just had, and I think it was like Doman after Doman after Doman on their roster. I think that was the era, and Canby was just tough as nails, and they brought it every Friday night. If Coach Joyce is able to reinvigorate that Canby community and get it back to where it was, they bring it on Friday nights when they're all bought in, and in a way that's very similar to kind of Sherwood-esque when they're all in. It's just tough to play there, and it's an environment, and it's a shut down the town type of thing.
Yeah, Canby is I'm a big fan of Canby, the community in general. I coached there for a couple of years back in the day. Jackson Doman, just FYI, 6'5", 185-pound sophomore. And there's
another Doman?
Other Doman, yeah. They might change the name of the school.
Is it a son? It's got to be a son, because Domans have been going through there for like 25 years or something.
I would hope so.
It's the son of a former Doman that I probably know.
Well, I'm guessing, but yeah, I would assume.
Okay.
Regardless, he's one of the best. He's one of the top. He's a top 10 athlete statewide. He played linebacker this last year and will be a receiver as well this coming season. So yeah, there's another Doman.
So here comes Canby.
Yeah, the whole team got injured. Tyler Canold went for 2,000 yards as a sophomore and was injured last year. So he'll or just under 2,000, excuse me. But he'll be back. They're looking really good. I got a lot of respect for Coach Jimmy Joyce, one of the best play callers anywhere in the Northwest.
All right, Coach Pyne, you are up with your 5 alternate picks for the final round.
We will have Nick Gibson, running back from McMinnville. Emmett Tongi, running back from Lincoln. Tanner Dobeck, D-line from South Umpqua. Isaiah Minton-Tubby, D-line, Churchill. And Thomas Bishkoff, linebacker from Regis.
All right, Team Willamette and Coach Line, you guys will finish it off with your 5 alternate picks, and then we'll be ready to wrap it up.
John, I wanted to ask you about the evaluation day. And I know always, whether it's a showcase event, a camp, a 7-on-7 tournament, whatever the case be, There's just structural things you have to feel out in year one, but the expected 40 kids, over 100 showed up. Obviously, it informs the Les Schwab Bowl draft, but it also potentially, as it grows, can be something that college coaches can use as a recruiting resource. They can go and see these kids. How excited are you about the evaluation day in year one, and also the potential for growth for not only, the Les Schwab Bowl, but the evaluation day in and of itself?
Yeah, no, Andrew, you're 100% right. When we brought it up, we have so many kids especially after changing the format, both with any level and then doing the draft, a lot of kids really wanted to play. And so, our social media DMs are nothing but huddle films, over the place. So, obviously we've got on our staffs for this game, we're super lucky to have the best coaches in the state, being a part of it. So we went to them and said, what do you guys think we should do with this? Because so many kids now are wanting to play. There's still a nomination process that the head coach needs to nominate the kid to be a part of it versus, you see the showcases, anybody can sign up. Right. Ours was, it's targeted. The coaches need to say the kid can go and do it. And again, when we talked about it, it was just for another opportunity to be seen. But then as we started going through the dates, we're like, we should line this up to actually be another opportunity for kids in our state to be seen by college coaches, especially those that want to be seen to play at the next level, no matter what level it is. So we just basically took the two ideas, combined them, set the date, and then had our coaches run it. And it wasn't the showcase, run the 40, like the typical NFL combine that you see. It was really like, hey, the football oriented stuff, the IQ had to be seen with the drills that they were doing. And again, because we had the best coaches, there, and collectively we said, like, okay, if they're not going to be selected or they just don't happen to be, we want them to walk out of it with a great football experience, something that they can take back to their team, their school. Hey, I learned XYZ. It really helped me, and then we sat down and actually, had a few conversations with kids over there. That's collectively what came out. Wasn't about, obviously the motivation was there to try to make the team, but they came out there. This was one of the best football experiences, that we've had. So we hit that goal too. And again, we're going to grow that thing, but not get to the numbers of a typical showcase, because again, it's about the reps. Like, we don't want a kid to show up and only get 3 reps, right, with 800 kids at a showcase. We'll keep it at 150. So by the time they walk out of there, just like they did this last year, kids were tired. They felt like they got everything that they, were thinking about, and even better. So we definitely see it growing.
A few years ago, you guys reached kind of a fork in the road kind of with this event, where a lot of athletes it was required that they go to spring practice. They were graduating early. They were going to spring practice. So their coaches were saying, hey, we don't want you to get hurt in this. You're a Pac-12 athlete. You guys have adjusted and evolved this event in a really creative, innovative, and frankly, invigorating way in the past few years. Underclassmen coming in, injected 4 and 5 star, 3, 4, and 5 star prospects on top of the seniors who are already obviously a part of this game. You introduce the draft, so it's not north and south. It creates more competitive balance. And now we're doing the draft online and evaluation day. All really interesting layers to this thing. How important has it been to stay innovative instead of, it still has the roots of the tradition of 1948 when it was founded, but at the same time, you've been willing to let this thing grow and evolve and keep it not only relevant, but keep it at the forefront of really the premier all-star game in the state of Oregon?
No, you're exactly right. A big thing is change is never easy, especially for anybody that's been around for a long time, and they're used to having it happen a certain way because it's tradition, but we just adjusted with the college game more than anything. Obviously, if you're a Division I player, you have to report early, go to spring ball. And so those seniors were missing out on playing the game, not from their own fault or not because they didn't want to. It was because they had to report early. And right. So, there's actually a couple of current NFL players from Oregon brought it to our attention that, hey, I always wanted to play in your game. Like, that was my goal, but I couldn't because I had to report early. So again, we don't make that decision by ourselves. We hit the coaches and say, hey, what do you think about this? So that's when we added the underclassmen. And then we, knowing that the East-West, you talk about Baker City, the Shrine game there, they play it later in the year, in the summer. So if you're a college football player of any sort, you have to report early and you miss that game as well. And so actually Jordan Poyer brought it up to us because he was at Astoria. He wanted to play in our game, but then Oregon State obviously made him report, but he knew he could not play in that game, but he wanted to play in an all-star game. So that's when the wheels started turning. And again, just like any good coach, you have to make adjustments. So we've made it. And then, the draft process, again, it was very hard with North-South because one region can be better than the other region any given year, just based on class. And so that was that adjustment. And then it just really put that, like you said, little spark in there that, like, this is cool. Coach Pyne was talking about, Yates from last year. That could have been the best player out there from Coquille. If we didn't make those adjustments, then he wouldn't have been there, and all this other stuff probably wouldn't have happened. Again, now, like you said, the evaluation day, we had 100 kids from 45 different communities, from every corner of Oregon, from south to the east. I mean, they were all there. And, like, we were all amazed. Both the coaching staffs and our staff was actually shocked about that. They would make the drives, stay the night because it was that important to them. And so, again, it's just like our basketball stuff that we do. We're trying to put Oregon, kids on the map and give them an opportunity. And we see this as just another stepping stone to make that happen.
Well, I think you've done a phenomenal job of evolving it because it's fantastic, and it's become this new thing. And now with this draft, it brings a whole nother layer. And that's the thing about the Les Schwab Bowl. So many all-star games get stuck in the tradition; they don't evolve. And this thing has evolved in such a way that it's added intrigue and interest into it. And I think you've done a phenomenal job.
No, we appreciate that. And again, like, it really goes out to the coaches. I mean, it's their game. That's how we look at it. We follow what they, tell us. This would be cool if we did this. And then the second one is the players. Being selected to this now is a very big thing. If we're evolving to doing this, live broadcast type stuff, then we know that we're on the right trajectory. And again, if we keep the focus on having our coaches lead it and having our players be a part of it, I think we're going to do pretty well in the future.
Jace Swigard from Lake Ridge, Nathan Walks from Redmond, Patrick Woolley, Liberty, Dylan Espinoza, South Medford, and Patrick Kelly from Jesuit.
So that'll wrap it up. That's the final 9th round alternate list. We have our 40 players each side. I'll turn it over to you, Andrew, to wrap it up. Final remarks. Again, appreciate everybody being a part of this. Everybody watching, congratulations to all those players that were selected. We'll be contacting you very soon. Obviously Coach Pyne, his staff from Team Columbia, Coach Line and his staff from Team Willamette have done a tremendous job and can't thank them enough.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Coach Steve Pyne. Thank you to Coach Josh Line, both phenomenal coaches, two of the best coaches in the state, phenomenal rosters on both sides. Thank you to Jordan Johnson of Prep RedZone and John McCallum, obviously. Much more easygoing than Roger Goodell, but still the commissioner, just an easygoing commissioner. This was the Les Schwab Bowl presented by Express Employment Professionals Player Draft. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you Saturday, July 1st at Linfield University for kickoff and what should be the culmination of a really exciting week for players, coaches, fans, and of course, the various communities from all parts of the state of Oregon who will now be participating in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everybody's hard work on this. It's been fun.